Every promise made in gold eventually gets broken in paper. August 15th, 1971, a Sunday evening. Most Americans were watching Bonanza, eating TV dinners, living the dream their parents had fought wars to protect. They had no idea their president was about to commit the greatest monetary heist in human history. No guns, no bombs, just a man, a camera, and 15 minutes that would quietly rob every person on Earth. Richard Nixon appeared on television that night with news he called temporary. A minor adjustment to help the economy, he said. Nothing to worry about. He was closing the gold window, suspending the conversion of dollars into gold. It would be brief, he promised. Purely defensive. The kind of lie that shapes centuries. What he didn't say was this. He had just severed the last thread connecting money to reality. He had turned the dollar from a claim on something real into a belief system, from a measuring stick into a magic trick. And once you understand what happened that night, you can't unsee it. Every economic crisis since, every bubble, every bailout, every time you've wondered why your paycheck buys less while everything costs more, it all traces back to that Sunday evening when America defaulted on the world. But to understand the betrayal, you have to understand the promise, the one made in the ashes of World War II, the one that made America the center of the global economy, the one Nixon shattered without firing a shot. 1944. The war is still raging, but the Allies know they're winning. Representatives from 44 nations gather in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Mountains, fresh air, the kind of place where you make decisions about the future. They have a problem. The world economy is in ruins. 2 world wars in 30 years, currencies destroyed by hyperinflation. Trade collapsed. Trust evaporated. They need a system. Something stable. Something everyone can believe in. The British want one thing. The Americans want another. But America has the gold. 70% of the world's monetary gold sits in vaults beneath Manhattan. So America gets what it wants. The deal is simple. Elegant, even. The dollar becomes the world's reserve currency. Every other currency pegs to the dollar, and the dollar pegs to gold at $35 per ounce. Any country holding dollars can exchange them for gold at that price. Anytime, no questions asked. It's a promise, a guarantee, written into international law. America becomes the bank of the world. Other nations hold dollars because dollars are as good as gold. Better than gold, actually. You can't send gold through a telegraph wire. You can't write checks in gold. But dollars backed by gold? Perfect. The Bretton Woods system is born. And for a generation, it works. The 1950s are golden, literally. American workers can buy a house on a single income. A car, a television, a future. The dollar is strong because it's tied to something real. Prices are stable. Wages buy more every year. Savings actually mean something. The American middle class explodes into existence. This is what stability looks like. This is what happens when money is anchored to reality. But underneath the prosperity, something is rotting. The government is spending on programs, spending on war, spending more than it takes in. The Vietnam War is burning through billions. The Great Society programs are expensive. Noble goals, perhaps, but they cost money. America doesn't have. Here's the problem with a gold standard. It enforces discipline. You can't just print money when you run out. You have to face consequences. If you print more dollars than you have gold to back them, people will notice. They'll start asking questions. They'll want their gold back. And that's exactly what starts happening. The French are the first to see through the charade. Charles de Gaulle, he's not stupid. He's watching America print dollars to fund a war in Asia. He's watching the money supply grow while the gold reserves stay the same. He does the math. He doesn't like what he sees. 1965. France starts exchanging dollars for gold. Not because they hate America, because they understand arithmetic. If there are more dollars than gold, some dollars are lies. Better to have the gold while you still can. Other countries watch. They start doing the same. Switzerland, Germany, Spain. The gold is leaving, flowing out of Fort Knox and the Federal Reserve. America's bleeding gold while printing dollars to pay for war and welfare. The system is breaking. But instead of admitting it, instead of making hard choices, the government keeps spending, keeps printing, keeps pretending everything is fine. By 1971, the charade is obvious to anyone paying attention. America has printed far more dollars than it has gold to redeem them. The world is holding dollar claims that can't all be honored. It's a bank run waiting to happen. Every country that doesn't get their gold out now might never get it. Nixon is in a corner. He can do the right thing. Stop the spending. Stop the war. Raise taxes. Face the political consequences of fiscal responsibility. Or he can do what governments always do when they overspend. He can cheat. He can change the rules. He can break the promise and hope nobody notices until it's too late. Sunday evening, August 15th. Nixon sits in front of the camera. He looks serious, presidential. He's about to commit a crime, but he makes it sound like patriotism. He announces a temporary suspension of dollar convertibility to gold. He frames it as defending America against speculators, against foreign governments trying to manipulate our economy. He makes the victims sound like villains. But listen to what he's really saying. We promised you gold. We don't have enough gold. So we're breaking the promise and we're blaming you for asking us to keep it. The gold window closes permanently. It was never temporary. It was never defensive. It was a default. America told the world, we owe you gold, but we're not paying. Take your dollars or leave them. What are you going to do about it? And the world? The world had no choice. The dollar was already woven into every contract, every trade, every central bank balance sheet. Switching to another currency would have been chaos. So they accepted the new reality. Dollars backed by nothing but the full faith and credit of a government that had just proven it would break its promises. This is the moment. This is when modern money is born. Not in a philosophical debate or an economic treatise. In a unilateral betrayal on a Sunday night. From that moment forward, the dollar is whatever the government says it is, worth whatever they decide to print. Backed by force, not gold. By faith, not substance. The immediate effects are obvious. The dollar collapses against other currencies. Gold prices explode. $35 per ounce becomes $80, then $100, then hundreds more. The price of gold isn't rising. The dollar is falling, revealing its true value now that the gold anchor is gone. Inflation arrives like a flood. Prices that had been stable for decades start climbing. 5% inflation, then 7%, then double digits. The 1970s become a nightmare of stagflation. Wages can't keep up. Savings evaporate. The middle class that Bretton Woods built starts to crack. But the long-term effects are even worse because Nixon didn't just close the gold window. He opened Pandora's box. He showed every government on earth that you can break your promises and get away with it, that you can print money without limit, that you can spend today and make future generations pay. Before 1971, money was a measuring stick. After, it became a political tool. Governments realized they could fund anything by printing. Wars, bailouts, programs that would never survive a balanced budget. The money printer became the solution to every problem. Watch what happens to the debt after Nixon's shock. For 2 centuries, America mostly paid its debts. Deficits during wars, surpluses during peace. The debt grew slowly, carefully. But after 71, vertical, exponential. Trillions upon trillions, because why not? We can always print more. Watch what happens to the wealth gap. Before 71, assets and wages grew together. After, assets explode. Stocks, real estate, anything you can't print. Because when you inflate the money supply, the people closest to the money printer get rich. The people furthest away get destroyed. The bankers and the connected do fine. The workers and savers get robbed. This is the secret tax. Inflation. The government spending money it doesn't have. Creating it from nothing, diluting every dollar you've earned, saved, stored for your future. No vote, no transparency. Just quiet theft through the printing press. And it's not just America. The whole world followed. Every country unmoored from gold. Every currency became an experiment in faith. The British pound, the Japanese yen, the euro when it arrived. All fiat, all printable, all subject to the whims of central bankers and politicians. The pattern is ancient. Rome debased its coins. mixed cheap metal with silver, made each coin worth less, but kept the face value the same. The empire could spend more while the people got poorer. It worked until it didn't, until inflation destroyed the economy and the empire collapsed. Weimar Germany printed money to pay war reparations. Prices doubled every few days. Workers got paid twice a day because their morning wages were worthless by evening. People burned money for heat because it was cheaper than buying wood. The middle class was annihilated. The society that emerged from that chaos gave the world Hitler. Every empire does this. Every government in trouble reaches for the printing press. The Byzantines, the French with their assignats, the Chinese with their flying money. Always the same playbook, always the same result. Temporary prosperity followed by permanent destruction. Nixon's shock wasn't new. It was the oldest trick in the book, but it was brilliant in its audacity. He didn't debase the currency gradually. He cut the anchor completely. He turned the dollar from a gold certificate into a pure abstraction, a collective hallucination, held together by military might and economic momentum. And here's the darkest part. It worked. For a while. America got away with it because the dollar was already entrenched, because we had the military to back it up, because there was no alternative ready to replace it. The world stayed on the dollar standard even after the gold was gone. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. But look around today. Look at what that system has created. We live in a world where central banks print trillions at the press of a button, where governments accumulate debt that can never be repaid, where asset bubbles inflate and pop in endless cycles, where the young can't afford homes their grandparents bought on factory wages, where retirement is a dream deferred indefinitely. This is the world Nixon built that Sunday night. A world where money is whatever those in power say it is, where value is determined not by reality but by policy, where your life savings can be eroded by decisions made in secret meetings you'll never attend. The inflation you feel at the grocery store? That's the Nixon shock, compounding over 50 years. The housing crisis? Nixon shock. Your paycheck buying half what it did a decade ago? Nixon shock. The bailouts and stimulus and quantitative easing? All children of that decision to sever money from reality. Some people saw it coming. The Austrian economists warned about fiat currency for decades. The gold bugs stacked coins and waited. The skeptics who didn't trust the government's promises, they were called cranks and conspiracy theorists, until they were proven right. Because here's what they understood. Money is a claim on human effort, on real goods and services, on the productive capacity of an economy. When you tie money to gold, you tie it to something scarce, something you can't create at will. It forces honesty, forces limits, forces discipline. When you untie money from anything real, you get what we have now. A system where the government's failures become the people's debt, where mistakes get papered over with newly printed currency, where the consequences of bad decisions get delayed, magnified, and dumped on future generations. The ones who survived the '71 shock weren't the ones who trusted the system. They were the ones who owned real things, land, commodities. Eventually stocks, though even those are priced in the fake money. But the people who held paper dollars, who kept savings in the bank, who believed the government's promise that inflation was transitory, they were quietly robbed. Today, the echoes are deafening. The Federal Reserve prints trillions and calls it quantitative easing. The government runs deficits that would have been unthinkable before '71. The word billion has been replaced by trillion, and soon that won't be enough either. The currency is dying the same death Rome's did. Just slower, just quieter, just digitally. And now there's talk of central bank digital currencies, the next evolution of fiat money, where every transaction is tracked, where your money can be programmed to expire, where the government doesn't even need printing presses anymore. Just database entries, just ones and zeros that can be created or destroyed with a keystroke. This is the endgame of Nixon's decision, complete control over the money supply, over your ability to save, spend, trade. The gold window closed in '71. Now they're closing the cash window, making money purely digital, purely controllable, purely manipulable. But here's the thing about broken promises. People remember, maybe not immediately, maybe not consciously, But somewhere deep down, trust is lost. And once lost, it's almost impossible to recover. Some people are opting out, buying gold again, buying silver, buying Bitcoin, and other cryptocurrencies that can't be printed by governments. Whether these are solutions or just different problems, they share one thing: a distrust of the system that emerged from Nixon's shock, a desire for money that can't be manipulated by the powerful. The question isn't whether the fiat system will fail. History has already answered that. Every fiat currency in history has eventually gone to zero. The question is when, and what comes next, and whether you'll be ready. Because the pattern is clear. Governments overspend. Governments print. Inflation arrives. The middle class gets destroyed. The wealthy who own assets survive. The poor who live on cash get devastated. It happened in Rome, in Weimar, in Zimbabwe, in Venezuela. It's happening now, just slowly enough that most people don't notice until it's too late. Nixon's speech was 15 minutes long, 15 minutes to undo 30 years of monetary stability, 15 minutes to launch 50 years of financial chaos. He called it temporary, he called it necessary, he called it patriotic, but strip away the rhetoric and you see it for what it was: a default, a betrayal. The moment America chose easy money over hard truth, the countries that demanded their gold back were right. The skeptics who said you can't trust fiat currency were right. The economists who warned about the dangers of unconstrained money printing were right. They weren't paranoid. They weren't cranks. They understood what happens when you break the link between money and reality. We're living in the long shadow of that Sunday evening. Every economic crisis, every bailout, every time you wonder why everything costs more, but your wages stay flat. Every time you see billionaires add billions while families struggle to afford basics. Every time the government solves a problem by printing more money. That's August 15th, 71. Playing out in slow motion. The gold window didn't just close, a door opened. A door to a world where money is whatever the powerful say it is. Where your savings are at the mercy of policymakers who face no real constraints. Where the bill for today's spending will be paid by people who aren't born yet. Where the promise of sound money was sacrificed for the convenience of unlimited spending. History doesn't repeat itself. It doesn't need to. The same patterns play out across different eras with different technologies, but the same human nature. The same temptation to print rather than produce, to borrow rather than save, to inflate rather than face consequences. Rome, Weimar, America. The names change. The timeline changes. The outcome never does. Collapse isn't the end of the story. It's the moment when reality collects its debt. When the gap between what was promised and what can be delivered becomes too large to paper over. When faith in the currency dies and people realize they're holding worthless paper, that moment is coming. Not tomorrow, perhaps, but coming. The system that emerged from Nixon's shock has lasted 5 decades, longer than most fiat currencies in history. But longevity isn't the same as sustainability. A Ponzi scheme can last years if enough people keep buying in. It doesn't make it legitimate. It just delays the reckoning. And the reckoning always comes. Because you can't print real wealth. You can print dollars. You can print bonds. You can print numbers in a computer. But you can't print food, energy, shelter, the things money is supposed to represent. Eventually, the printed money chases the real goods and prices explode. Eventually, people lose faith. Eventually, the magic trick stops working. The great tragedy is how avoidable it was. Nixon had choices. America had choices. We could have stopped the spending, ended the war, made the hard decisions, kept the promise. Instead, we chose the easy path, the printed path, the path of deferred consequences and someone else's problem. Now we live with the results. A financial system built on sand, on the belief that this time is different, that we're smarter than Rome, wiser than Weimar, better at managing money than every empire that came before. But we're not. We're just further along in the same journey toward the same destination. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. Nixon didn't save the dollar that night. He killed it. Not in one dramatic moment, but in a slow bleed that's still happening. Every year the dollar buys less. Every year the debt grows larger. Every year the gap between promise and reality widens. The shock of 71 wasn't an event. It was a process. And we're still in it. But here's what you need to understand. You don't have to be a victim of this system. The people who survive currency collapse are never the ones who trusted the government's promises. They're the ones who saw the pattern, who read the history, who prepared before everyone else panicked. They're the ones who held things with intrinsic value, who didn't keep their wealth in paper claims on a system built on broken promises, who understood that scarcity matters, that real assets outlast fake money, that when the illusion shatters, only the tangible remains. You can see the code now. The pattern that Nixon accelerated but didn't invent. The pattern as old as government itself. The powerful always try to spend more than they have. They always turn to the printing press. They always betray the promises made in gold with decisions made in paper. And they always tell you it's for your own good. History isn't a prediction, it's a warning. The gold window closed once, permanently. But you still have a window. A moment before the next phase begins. Before the digital controls tighten. Before the inflation becomes undeniable. Before faith in the system finally breaks completely. The question isn't what will happen. History has answered that. The question is what you'll do with the knowledge. Will you be among the ones who saw it coming? Who positioned themselves accordingly? Who understood that in a world of fake money, real assets are freedom? Or will you be like those Americans watching television that Sunday night in 71, enjoying their TV dinners, trusting their government, believing the promises that were being broken as they watched, unaware that the world was changing, that the game was rigged, that the greatest theft in history was being committed in real time under the banner of patriotic duty? August 15th, 1971. A Sunday evening. The day America defaulted on the world. The day money became pure belief. The day the printing press replaced the gold vault. Everything after that is just aftermath. Just the slow-motion collapse of a system built on a broken promise. The window closed. The anchor cut. The restraints removed. And here we are, 50 years into the experiment, watching the endgame unfold. The only question left is whether you'll recognize it before it's too late. History gave us the answers. We just have to be willing to see them, to act on them, to be among the few holding something real when the illusion finally, inevitably, shatters. The pattern never changes. Only the people who learn from it, and the people who don't. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, it would mean the world to us if you like the video or subscribe to our channel. We truly believe that understanding the past is key to navigating the future. And by studying financial history, you are better prepared to safeguard your wealth than 99% of the people out there. If you have any questions or remarks, or would like to request a video topic for our next deep dive, please leave a comment down below. We aim to reply to all of them. Until next time.